I'm the chairman of the community, Commissioner Ferrolo, Councilor Ferrolo. With me on the committee is Councilor Papalato, Councilor Campbell, Councilor Demers, and Councilor Toro. So there's only one item on the agenda today, minutes.
I make a motion to waive the minutes for the prior meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. The only matter on the agenda tonight is Friends of Hospice V&A Care for a special event permit to allow a road race and help walk at Long Pond and area streets on October 6, 2024. This has been going on for decades. Pretty straightforward. Really wish it.
Yeah, oh, I didn't know if anybody had come to talk about it.
No.
Anybody here?
Go
Hi.
crazy.
I have to be directed my first time.
Oh, that's okay. Welcome. Thank you.
Just tell us about it.
27th Annual Hospice Road Race and Walk, October 6th, full-day event out of the Irish American Club in the South End. We are hoping for upwards of 300 folks, majority walkers, probably about 40 to 50 runners, 5-mile road race, 3-mile walk. We'll have live entertainment, and the Irish American Club has received their permits for the event.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions?
I don't.
Will of the committee?
I make a motion that we approve.
Second, huh?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Not so bad, right?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Done.
You're next.
I call the Committee on Personnel to order. Do we have a motion for the reading of the meeting's minutes? Actually, on my committee is myself, Joanne Campbell, as chair. I have Joseph Demers, he's out today,
Just me.
and Councilor Toro.
I'll make a motion to waive the reading of the prior minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Okay, so we have one appointment. We have the appointment of Susan Cashel to the Woburn Housing Authority. Mr. Mayor, would you like to speak briefly?
Yes, please. How can we say briefly?
No. We did open the window.
No, nothing was meant by that.
Very briefly, pleased to present to you a nomination, hopefully you'll confirm, Susan Doherty Cashel to the Housing Authority. Extensive experience in housing. She's the director down in Winchester. She's been doing this for a long time. I think she'll be a perfect fit on our Housing Authority board. So I'm asking you to please give her your support. She's available for any questions you may have, but I have no doubt about this one.
Okay. Welcome, Susan. How are you?
Good, thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing very well. So please tell us a little bit about yourself and about what you do and what you think that you can bring to the Woburn Housing Authority.
So I've been in housing for 29 years. I started at Woburn Housing, then went over to Lexington as the state liaison for just a very brief time. And about 24 years ago, Winchester called me and said, will you come and run our Section 8 program? I did that for about 20 years, and now I've been the director for going on 4 years. I think what I can bring is a lot of knowledge and to answer any questions that the board may have on regs and procedures and things of that nature.
Wonderful. Councilor Toro?
Thank you. Yeah, I had a chance to read over your resume and it's phenomenal, so thank you. I think based on the resume and, the brief description from Susan, I'm in favor of the appointment. So.
Okay. Do I have, can you give me a motion to allow other people to speak?
Yep, I'll make a motion to allow non-voting members to speak.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Who would like to speak? Yes.
I think you'd be great. My only question for you, Susan, is when you were in Winchester, what side did you sit on during the football games?
I'm not a voting.
Good answer. Good answer.
We're lucky to have you. Thank you.
Councilor Viola?
Susan, I think you're a great fit for this. I couldn't think of anybody better to have put on the
Thank
housing authority, so I look forward to seeing the work that you do there.
Thank you.
Councilor Dillon?
Thank you. Well, in my professional career as real estate sales, broker, real estate development and such, I have throughout the years called Susan to navigate different situations that even myself, who's been a broker since the early 80s, felt that I needed some guidance. Always professional, always on top of her game. Couldn't get a better pick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
Being all the expertise that you have, I'm looking forward to what you're gonna bring. I support this 1,000%. Good luck.
Thank you.
well, anyone else? Okay, do I have a motion?
I will make a motion to send out to the city council an ought to pass recommendation for the appointment of Susan Cashel to the Woburn Housing Authority.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Susan.
Thank you.
So looking forward to you being there.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you.
Awkward committee with two people.
A little bit trickier when there's only two people.
Did great.
All right, I'll call the Committee on Finance to order. I'm Councilor Viola, I'm the chair. With me on the committee is Councilor Campbell, Councilor Demers, who's absent, Councilor Ferrullo, and Councilor Mercer Bruin. I'll entertain a motion for the previous meeting's minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the order to appropriate $30 million for reconstruction of fire stations 4 and 5 and to authorize borrowing of said funds. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Evening again.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for your consideration of this significant request. I acknowledge that at the outset. I have with me tonight the team that's been working on this issue for some time now, and they are available to answer questions and provide information to this committee to help you make the best decision. We have with us our fire chief and our deputy. Also from the public safety field, by way of support, we have Chief Rufo, who's come down. The auditor is here as well. We have the union president, Sean Wheatler, is here, and we have our consultants who have worked with us on our fire stations for years now, as well as our schools, Mr. Saida and Mr. Rice. So what I'd like to do is just give a brief overview of how we got to this point. And then I will defer to the others in the room for a little more substantive information and answers to specific questions you might have. So as you recall, many on this council were with me probably about 5 years ago when we were presented with a plan to address the needs of our fire stations. And we made significant progress as a result of that plan. That was a $30 million bond authorization. The goal was to build a brand new fire station and to also address some of the deficiencies in the other 3 stations. A whole lot of work went into that. And we have the results up on Main Street. Beautiful headquarters. Came in at around $23.5 million, which left us with about $6.5 million to try to address the needs of the other 3 stations. Now, I was on the council back then, and I will tell you that at the time, I was pleased to be able to vote for fire station upgrades. I was pleased to be able to get a new headquarters. And I was hoping that the rest of the money would allow us to make some significant improvements to the other stations. In the years that have passed, with everything that's happening in the world, the cost of everything going up, and when it came time this spring to take a look at the next steps, we gathered the team together again, reviewed all the documentation, reviewed the proposals and the costs. And it appeared to me at that time that the amount of money from the initial authorization as put up against the actual needs of the buildings we have and looking forward to try to accommodate the needs of the city, it wasn't enough money to really make the impact that we needed to make. $6.5 million to apply to Station 4 in East Woburn, Station 5 on the west side, and Station 1 on the south end would not be enough to allow us to do anything of any significance to those stations. So I asked the chief and the rest of the team to take a look at what, in 2024, what we believe we really need for today and going forward to make our fire station sufficient to meet the needs of the city of Woburn today and going into the next 20 to 40 years. So we worked hard throughout the spring, sharpened the pencils many times to try to come up with a plan we could present to this council that would meet those needs. So what we have before you tonight is a request for $30 million, which would, in essence, allow us to build a new Station 4 in East Woburn on the same site on Central Street. Approximately $14.5 million to do that. It would get us the 3-bay solution that would serve our needs for years to come. It would allow us to accommodate the number of staff that would need to be housed there to provide those needs. And it would, in the opinion of the chief and others, it would satisfy the needs for the northeast corner of Woburn for many, many years to come. Again, it would allow 3 bays, so we could house a ladder truck, an engine, and potentially an ambulance in that station. That is the immediate pressing need, and I think it's something that we can satisfy pretty quickly with the approval of this council. The next step in the process would be, I've concluded, and hopefully you'd agree with me, that the current location and topography, geography, and actual structure of Station 5 on the west side is insufficient going forward. It is inadequate to cover the needs of that part of the city, and it'll only become more inadequate as time goes on. The idea would be to take the design for the new Station 4 and not reinvent the wheel, simply find a location on the west side and copy that structure over there. That cannot be done on the current location where Station 5 is. There's just not enough room. The lot is undersized even for what's there now. There's no way we could accommodate anything larger over there. So again, if the first one is about $14.5 million, and we move quickly on the second one, identifying a location and using the same design, the cost would be roughly the same. So those 2 stations would be close to the $30 million authorization. And the goal would be to use the remaining $6.5 million from the prior authorization to rehab Station 1 down the south end. The good news with Station 1, it's newer, it's in better shape, it doesn't need to be torn down and rebuilt. We think with that amount of money, we can provide the necessary upgrades for that to be effective and efficient for years to come. So again, the $6.5 million from the prior authorization is still out there. We're asking for 30 to accommodate the new 4 and the new 5. We have talked at length, and the chief can provide detail to you tonight on how it would all work when we raise and rebuild Station 4. Where do the crews go? They can go to either headquarters or 1. The chief will explain that. Identifying a new location for the Station 5 is critical, top of the list. But if we find a location on the west side to build from scratch, we can remain in 5 until the new 5 is open. So we don't need to move anybody around over there. And then when we address Station 1 down the south end, we can do as much as we can while the crews are there, and then we can move them out and finish the rehab there as efficiently as we can. The chief has looked at this plan, and he believes he can cover the needs of the city all during construction. So that's the design plan, and again, we've got the team here to answer any questions you might have. They can talk about what the bays look like, what the staffing would look like, what the bunk rooms look like, all of that. The auditor is here as well. We can talk to you about how we pay for this. In a nutshell, I'll tell you that there is debt that is wrapping up in the next couple of years from high school, the White School, and the Shamrock, and other things. Charlie can go into detail on that. And the annual payment for the debt that's ending is roughly the cost of this debt that I'm asking you to authorize tonight. So that should provide some comfort level. We've got the union president is here as well if you have any questions on the perspective of the firefighters in terms of the need, in terms of going forward into the next 20-plus years. He's got expertise. He can answer any questions you might have. So with that, I'd like to bring up the fire chief just to talk a little bit about how we got to this point. If you have a particular question of me right now, I'm more than happy to answer it. But, again, I'd like to have the chief explain a little bit about how we got to this point, what the needs really are, how the plan works, and we can just go through the rest of the team. if you'd like.
Before we proceed, I think Councilor Mastroianni has a question for you.
And I certainly could wait till Chief Kenton goes through the presentation, because one of my questions, Chief Kenton, was, I know we have, metrics, how do we get to the staffing numbers and the system you guys use to track all the calls? And I imagine all of that went into these things. If you could just give an overview, I think it's important for people at home to hear that as well.
Yeah, so, are we talking about the buildings themselves? So the buildings right now, they're in tough shape.
Yes, they are.
De-
Yeah, not talking
deplorable.
about the buildings, how to staff the buildings and.
So,
Yeah.
so one of the reasons we're looking to go to a three-bay, we're basically out of room. So we go to a three-bay station at Station 4. We already ordered a new aerial. That aerial will be housed at Station 4, provided there's a bay for it. And we will work to man that one piece of apparatus to get us back to 2 aerials and 3 engines. That's where we were prior to, when we had 2 people on a piece of apparatus. When we changed from 2 people on a piece of apparatus, that was at the peril of losing an aerial. We put the captain in a car, and 3 people on a piece of apparatus. So we're trying to get back that missing piece of aerial apparatus that will place at Station 4 where all our industry is.
Right, and we don't want things to get any smaller down there, we need that tax base, so, and anyone who is over there at any time knows how many times
Right.
coming and going, just stand there on an election day. It's constant.
There's growth everywhere.
Everywhere.
Every
The west side.
corner of the city.
Yeah.
We're trying to meet that.
So that was one of my questions. I think the other, if I still have the floor, Chairman. So the $30 million, Mayor, 14.5 will go to Station 4. Is that plan imminent? Where are we in, having a shovel in the ground? And the reason I ask that is because the 30 million, if we don't get to step 2 fast enough, it will probably be more than 30
Yeah,
million?
we've taken that into
Okay.
consideration. That's built into the numbers. And again, the consultant's here to explain to you how we got to that point.
Okay.
But we're building in the time frame to get this done for that cost.
Okay, and potential for the cost to go up and all of that has
There's
been built into the
contingencies built
30
in,
million?
yes.
Okay, and the last question I had, if I still have the floor, is I think probably for Charlie. The debt that we're wrapping up, Charlie, what is it? And how will it compare to this debt based on new interest rates?
To that point, currently the debt that is revolving off is on the city side, about 8.9 million in the next couple of years. And I'll reference the areas that we have. One would be a partial bond that we did in high school, which is annually about $140,000. We have the Leland Park construction note that is expiring this year at $123,000. We also have the second phase of the high school construction, which will go off in the end of the second year, which is $1.3 million a year at that time. And we also have the landfill closing, which is $51,000 a year. There's another one that will be revolving off of
Okay.
these 2 years. And the final one is the Shamrock School, which is about $214,000 a year. That's going to be followed.
Okay.
And that, like I said, that comes to about 1.89 million on the city side. Overall, water and sewer and everything else for the next couple of years, we have about $2.36 million coming off the books.
And in terms of the new debt,
The new debt, I'll elaborate, if you're looking at an opportunity to just speak a little bit further to this.
Sure.
I met with bond counsel last week to kind of get a picture for you guys so I can say what a 30-year bond, what the impact would be in the city. And currently, right now, because the market's already building in several projected rate cuts, and we're a AAA community, they felt it's very favorable to us right now. And they were saying that we have options up to 30 years to go out to debt. And I did a projection on a 20-year, a 25, and a 30. Currently, right now, the way the market looks, we will be able to go to market for a 20-year at 3.25%, at a 25-year with 3.5%, and on a 30-year bond with 3.75%. Total debt, if we're looking on a principal and interest basis for the 20-year note, is about $2 million a year would be the cost if we were gonna try to pay it down over 20 years. That's the cheapest bonding we could do. If we want to go to 25, it drops to about $1.8 million a year principal and interest, but it's an increased cost of say $4 million over the life of the note. A 30-year, which is 3.75, would go up, it would go down to 1.6 million a year, but it would have an increased cost over the term of the note of almost $10 million. So conservatively, the recommendation would be 20-year obviously would be the cheapest. A 25-year would give us a little bit more flexibility, but still good.
So, okay, so hooray for AAA. That's great. That's great.
That really benefits us.
Those were all my questions. Thank you very much.
Anybody else have a question before Chief Kenton speaks? Chief, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm willing to answer questions. I mean, you ask, I'll answer. How's that sound?
You can open it up to non-voter.
I'll make a motion to open it up to non-members of the committee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Council DeMembro.
Chief,
Counsel.
what happens with the firemen and women that are at these stations, and what's your plan to relocate them and house them, as well as have constant coverage without a hiccup in the system?
So we looked at response times, and we looked at housing the Station 4 crew at Station 1 and headquarters, and there's little difference. And they still meet the response time. So we could temporarily, during the building phase, put the Station 4 crew at headquarters and still meet our response times, or at Station 1 and meet our response times.
Would you be splitting them?
No,
No,
it'd be one or the other.
one or the other.
And then when, as the mayor said, when you reconstruct Station 5 in a new location, they'll still operate out of the existing Station 5. So that would work.
And renovations for one, I'm assuming your guys will go to headquarters?
Again, the tower crew could go to the new Station 4, and between
okay.
them and Station 5 in the existing building, they could meet our response times.
Okay, all right, good. So we're gonna still have blanketed coverage, we won't have a hiccup in coverage whatsoever,
We will, and just remember, it's temporary.
temporary.
12 months-ish.
14 months of construction for 4, that.
Okay. All right, thank you,
President
Chief.
Dillon?
Thank you. Chief, how are you tonight?
Well, thank you.
A number of questions. Starting out probably with a recent fact that I found out talking to Chief Rufo over here is, as we all know, we have a population of 41,000 people here in Woburn. During the working hours of Monday through Friday, that it swells to over 200,000 people. We need to support this. We are at a point where it's dangerous, in my humble opinion, if we don't get going on this. With the amount of people that we have here in the working days, Monday through Friday, it's just overdue. So again, I support this. One of the other questions I have, Chief, is either one of these stations that we're gonna be replacing now, currently, do they have any decon rooms that are recognized professionally from the state or the federal government the way they should be?
Yeah, there's nothing like that. It's, we bought an extractor for each station that kind of cleans the gear, but it's just put out in the bay in a space where we could fit it.
And if you can, as quickly as you can. Can you explain what a decon room, a clean
Yeah,
room, a hot zone, a cold zone, and the
Ideally,
importance of it?
right, so, cancer is prevalent in the fire service, and through studies, we found that cleaning our gear and our person when we get back from a call is critical. And that's something that these decon rooms do. We get back, we can gross decon in a shower that's designed for it. Then we can wash our gear, wash our clothing, move to showers, take a shower, get a new set of clothes on rapidly. That's what we have at our new station, and that's what we're looking for at these. That's what will be built into these two new stations. They'll be modernized where we have decon in both Station 4 and Station 5. Right now, we would have to take them out of service and have them come to the headquarters to decon.
And why is it so important to have these separate from the living quarters?
Well, right, it's just cross-contamination and just keeps them, it's just keeps us healthy.
And anyone who's watched the news sees that how important this is and that it's becoming more and more prevalent. Not only are we asking our firefighters to go out and do their daily business in fighting fires, rescues, car accidents, whatever, here we are. We need to give them the support so that they can do it professionally and safely. There's too many types of cancers for me to rattle off here because I'm gonna mess them up. But I will read you the facts that I found recently. Firefighters have a 9% higher risk of being diagnosed with cancer and a 14% higher risk of dying from cancer than the general U.S. population. To me, we gotta give our firefighters here in Woburn every possible advantage that makes their job safe. They're already at risk every day they put on their uniforms. We don't need to make it any more difficult. Thank you, Chair.
Much, Toro. Thank you. Thanks, Chief. I think the architect mentioned 12 to 14 months for,
14 months around the,
is that building in potential delays in construction, or is that, if everything goes as planned?
that's as everything goes according to plan.
Okay, so realistically, in the construction field, that doesn't happen. What is a reasonable time? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but
Well, it's difficult to tell if we have another blip, like not being able to get bar joists like we had at headquarters at the beginning of the job, or even Eversource showing up doing a transformer or the switch gear. 14 months is a reasonable time. It might be 16 months if you try to make things go easier for the general contractor and have an early package where you vacate the Station 4 and take it down and get the site ready for the next contract. That's another way to hit the season, and that might stretch it out a little bit, but it might help you get into the building at a good time.
It's also a possibility too. I mean, we went through a horrendous period. You're probably familiar with the problem in getting switchgear and generators and large pieces of equipment. They were all almost impossible to get a hold of. I think we've kind of cleared that hurdle, but I think one of the things, again, you can look at is pre-purchasing. I mean, there's been a lot of pre-purchasing done on transformers and generators. So there are a lot of tools you can use, but the buildings are pretty straightforward to build. There's no complexities in the buildings. They're straightforward. And if the industry seems to suggest that there's some pre-purchasing required, that can be done to obviously alleviate it. And again, as Rick mentioned, we had done separate site packets on some of these projects to get a good jump on them. Whether it's appropriate here or not depends on how the schedule goes, but those are also other tools that can be used. So I think that the schedule is reasonable, and I think there are tools out here that if we run across anything else that comes up that seems to be unusual, I think the team is ready to do whatever's going to be done to keep them on time.
Councilor Mercer Bruin made mention to this, and I think that's what came up with the 12 to 14 month time frame. But I don't think the question was answered. If this was accepted, when would we expect? And maybe I missed it actually. When would we actually expect potential shovels in the ground construction actually take place and things to really
Yeah,
start.
we have, that's why these two are here. They can talk to you about the
So
design time.
we're projecting from notice to the design team to proceed with the contract to going out to bid 9 months and say 6 weeks to gather bids in the public setting. And so that would be awarding a contract, what's,
10.5.
I'd say 11 months, awarding a contract to a general contractor, and they can start.
So we're looking at potentially up to 3 years from now to seeing a completed fire station,
11 plus 14, 25 months.
if everything goes as planned.
Everything.
So up to 3 years. Okay, and then I think Sean's here from the union, and I'd love to, I'm not the chair, but I'd love to hear from him. But in terms of the design of the buildings, who's involved with the actual design of these buildings? Do all players have impact? Mayor, chief, union, or firefighters, things like that?
Put a building construction team together.
Okay, yeah, I would love to see that. Just-
I was a firefighter for the headquarters, and I was on the union side, and I was a member of the
Awesome.
headquarters building development team.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We
I would
had a lot
love
of
to.
input, and it was very
We
helpful.
want to build the stations that we actually need, and we need the input from those who use them.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you, Chen. I appreciate it.
Council Hippolyto.
So I have a few questions that I need to get comfortable with this. The first is, why did we go from enhancing the stations to building that new? And I don't know who this question is to, but somebody.
So 5 years ago, the proposal was for $30 million. And the primary focus of that was to build a new headquarters, replacing Station 3 and Station 2. The amount of money allocated, the lion's share was going to go to
Yep.
the headquarters. And the hope was that whatever was left of the 30 million might be enough to make some
It's clearly
improvements. It's just not.
Right, but if we said, the way things are with, what happened with the school budget and what's happening with the school buildings and what's happening with the budget in general, have we done an analysis to look and see what it would cost to do the enhancements? Yeah, it's not 6.5, but what's the number?
Well, we asked our consultant to take a look at that. The clear and obvious guidance was a tear down is the way to go, not to try to renovate these. And the chief will tell you that
Well, Station 5, you can't really do anything without triggering environmental things. It would be impossible to do anything on Station 5.
You couldn't build Station 5 the way it is now today on that side.
and it's inadequate as it is to
Conservation.
Okay. And I've been in some of the stations and they're despicable. I'll start there. And so something needs to be done. I 100% support that, but I worry about as we keep spending and spending and spending, and it's not just this, it's across the board. What does that do to the taxpayers? And I know that you mentioned that, some things are coming off the books, but there's a whole bunch of other things coming on the books. Right? And I hate to keep going back to the schools, but there's a whole bunch of money that's gonna have to get spent to do this, and I worry about what does all this fluctuation do? So some of the school money's coming off the books, but it's probably not too far out where there's gonna be more coming on the books, unless I'm misunderstanding this.
No, I mean, potentially, this is really just a snapshot of what exists right now. Potentially, if there's other capital projects that are approved for the schools, would be an increase to the
Our Station 1 is a candidate for rehab.
Which one is Station 1?
South End,
South
built
End,
in
okay.
1980, so it's 40-something years old.
Yeah.
But that is a two-story building with plenty of land. It is a candidate for rehab. Our Station 4 and 5, they were built in the early 60s, before modern-day codes. They got asbestos, they got lead, they got black mold.
Yeah.
They're not,
the slabs.
I don't have any doubt there's a need to do this, I don't. But I would
It's our
like
best option.
I would like to see some numbers to say, well, if we refurbish it, it's gonna cost us 12 million, we can get a brand new one for 14.5. Some number like that.
Can you weigh in with that?
Maybe,
If I may, the real issue is the programmatic need
like Chief described, why he needs a 3-bay station and the pieces for Station 4 to serve the growth in the city. Right now, Station 4 is a 2-bay, 1-story station on a acre-and-a-half site. And you could not add another bay or add the hot zone decom portions and add the crews to that existing building, let alone renovate it for, it would be for serious money. The real problem is there's the space isn't available to add the space to the existing buildings to do what the department needs to do today. Station 5 is the same thing, short bays, site that's hampered by wetland restrictions and the culvert that goes kitty corner across 40% of it. Excuse me. And it's a 2-bay station that just, you couldn't possibly, can't add a floor, you can't add first floor space to get the pieces that the department needs for the future out in the western part of Woburn.
So when we originally, the original plan was to refurbish these. And
That
I,
was what was proposed by.
a bunch of years back. And so the money is, seems like it's a big part of the problem is that it's gonna cost a lot more to buy new. But if we look at the general idea of whenever that was, 5 years ago, why was that decision a bad decision to refurbish at that point?
I don't think it was a bad decision. It was,
No, but we thought we could refurbish,
well, it was a
and now all
proposal.
of a sudden we can't.
It was a proposal that was sent down to the council for $30 million. And the focus was on a new headquarters.
Yeah,
And the hope was that the additional remaining funding could help us improve our stations. I don't know that anybody believed that we would accomplish everything we possibly needed or wanted.
right.
It was just a step forward in the right direction.
Yeah, okay. And then the last point I'll make is, the headquarters is a palace. That is a beautiful building. We deserve it. The firefighters have worked hard to get there. I think it's a wonderful place. It was 23 million for that building. So these substations, if you will, it seems like an awful big number, 14.5. That's a big number relative to the 23.5 million that's there.
As I mentioned, Bill, during the springtime, during this process, the team gathered several times and we brought it down to what we believe to be the minimum square footage and design to accommodate the needs. The number would have been higher initially, but we tried our very best to bring it down to what we absolutely needed to serve, as I said, maybe the next 20 to 40 years. It could have been higher.
Right.
But since we started the process at the headquarters, costs have gone up elsewhere anyway.
So it's significantly higher to build that same 23 billion,
I bet it would be.
$23 million.
Two buildings, too.
Square foot is significantly.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councilor Campbell?
Yes, but before that, I would just like to, maybe this will add some information for you, Councilor Papalato. When we were voting on the fire station and the extra money that would be left, at least in my view, we were very happy that there might even be some extra money left because things were going to be tight. And obviously, the South End station, to be able to upgrade it at some point would be important. This whole, and I might be using the term incorrectly, but the hot zone decon and being able to clean all of the suits and everything else after they come from a fire.
Yeah.
It really, at least for me, since I've been on the council, it's almost 10 years, it just came into sight for us. We had the fire department coming, showing us movies about it, and they were pushing this equipment. And at the time, the mayor would not support the monies for this particular thing, and the council felt strongly that this was something extremely important because of the amount of cancers that Councilor Dillon was talking about.
Yeah, 100% agree we
Yeah,
need to have that.
yeah, so that was something that we were really just all learning about. So that's why when we were getting the new fire station, the headquarters, we were thrilled that they were gonna have such a great area for the officers, the firefighters to be cleaned and the uniforms and everything else. So that's where I think everything was being jacked up price-wise, because this is all new technology that has to be done, and this is why it's not fitting in these other fire stations, because of the room that they need, the specialized rooms and all of that. But I just figured I would.
Yeah. And is this, it seems like we really need this. How frequently does this happen? We use these very frequently?
We use them for medical calls. We get biological blood and things on us.
Yeah.
And we're cleaning ourselves for that as well.
Yeah.
So it's daily.
Okay.
May I say something? It's not just house fires as well. It's the carcinogens from car fires, dumpster fires, anything that's related to smoke related. That's, you know, it's not just related to structure fires only. And you also have to remember too, City of Woburn now has over 72 labs that we know about, which contain, obviously chemicals and everything else that go along with it. That we know of anyways, in this area. So a lot of that stuff, most of that, like the car fires, we're in there. We just had a big box truck fire on Lowe's. We're engulfed in the smoke, and then the PFAS is also in our gear. So the most important and vital part is to get that off immediately.
Yeah.
Scientists in labs are not allowed to touch our gear without protective gear. However, we're encapsulated in it. And it's vital for us to get that off immediately, get it clean, get deconned, and get on to the next.
Seems like that's non-negotiable. You need to have that, and it has to stay in the package no matter what.
When you add a decon component, you're taking half of a bay, space-wise. So that's why we're trying to do this 3-bay configuration. That's a reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the 6.5 million that will be left to help renovate the South End Station, what might be done? What are they thinking of doing?
That would be adding the hot zone amenities, the decons. You know, right now, the turnout gear is in lockers that are in the vehicle bay. We want to get that stuff cleaned and stored someplace where it's not subject to diesel fumes. It's establishing the so-called hot zone, sealing it off from the living section of the building, so you don't have that cross-contamination between the hot zone and that. By virtue of the fact that one had more space because it was once headquarters, it really doesn't need any area added for getting the decon in.
Okay, so you'll have room to be able to do that.
Get upgraded living quarters, heating, you know, the lifelines to the building will be redone, new dorms, additional dorms, bathrooms.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry, I'd also like to the amount of work that we're doing in the building, even though the building's sound and can physically hold it, we do have to do code upgrades as a result of this increasing amount of upgrading to the physical plant, so that's part of the cost too.
Okay. Air quality will be good inside, so it will be healthy
It's
for the
basically all about
firefighters?
air quality with the hot zone.
Yeah, okay. And Station 5, this is probably for you, Mr. Mayor, what will happen to the land that's there? And do you have any properties at this point that you're looking at for the station?
We're looking at a few other locations in the west side. We've talked about the geography and the response time. There's a couple of city-owned parcels that might work. If they don't, there are other options. We could, work to acquire land some other way. If this council sees fit to bless this proposal, job one is to get working on the new Station 4 immediately. And right on the heels of that is locating the appropriate location in the west side for a new Station 5. There's probably 3 locations that might work that are under consideration right now. But that will be the immediate task, to nail that down, find that spot, and try to get construction on 5 going almost immediately after 4. Not after 4 is done, but after 4 starts.
In general, the area of Four Corners is ideal.
Yeah, okay. And I do think this is critical. I think it's something that needs to be done. But also with saying that, one other question. I know that in Councilor DeMambro's ward, there's been constant talk about potentially doing getting a new school at the Alta Vista. How will that affect going forward with something like that?
You manage that. You're talking during construction?
Financially,
Oh, you mean in terms of the bond?
yes.
Well, again, and you alluded to that earlier, Bill, we know that the school committee has created an ad hoc committee to take a look at the report that was done by the school building consultants. That committee is still working. I expect some recommendations from them later this fall. And we as a community are gonna have to take a look at the implications of what they're recommending. The process will call for this ad hoc committee to recommend things to the school committee and recommend things to the city council. And I expect a robust community-wide discussion about what Woburn is ready to take on in terms of new school building. Fortunately, there is a school building authority that we can work with to try to offset some of our costs. We wish there was a school firehouse authority at the state level to help us match funds, but there is not.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be the next big discussion, to Bill's point. But I wouldn't want that to prevent us from finishing the job that we all started 5 years ago with our fire stations. We need to address the status of 4 and 5, and to some extent 1, immediately, regardless of what is looming in the future for the schools. That'll be something we all decide together. What do we do about the recommendations we get on a new Alta Vista, Linscott, and potentially a new or improved or combined Joyce and Kennedy? I think it's out there, but I can't answer right now exactly what the recommendations are going to be. But I think we'll have to deal with that together.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilor Light.
May I add something too? Council Papalato, your points are valid, and I appreciate those. And putting the new 3-bay station over at Station 4, and in hopes of putting an aerial there, is going to, all it takes is 2 calls in the city of Woburn, 2 calls to wipe the entire fleet out. Put them on calls. And like Councilor Dillon said, we're a daytime population of over 200,000. But that doesn't include the major highways, interstates that are running through the city of Woburn, 128, 95, and 93, which we're on almost every single day. And then if we put an aerial where the Station 4 is, like the chief has proposed, it allows this aerial south end to be in service. Just the other day, for example, I'm on the tower. We had a call to Inwood Park through Reading. And we got canceled prior to arrival. Then we got called to another call on Sturgis Street, which is our district. Engine 5 was on a medical aid, which left no peace. It took 14 minutes and 31 seconds for us to get back to that call. Thankfully, it was just a small oil leak in the backyard and not some sort of cardiac emergency, which is almost daily as well. But yeah, just to get to that, what you were saying, it's your points are valid, but and that's one of the other reasons why a rebuild is necessary.
I mean, I 100% support, you need to get what you need. But I'm really concerned of all these other things happening across the city and the effect it's gonna have on the taxpayers. That's the bottom line.
Understood.
Councilor Ferrullo.
If I could dovetail onto Sean's comments, at 8:15 this morning, Woburn Fire Department was totally committed with 2 out-of-town rescues in the city. That was at 8:15 this morning, up on the highway with accidents, with other medical aid calls. They had Burlington, Reading, and they needed an ambulance to respond to a resident, and that was a Lexington ambulance came in on that, with both of our ambulances committed. And that's not drama, that's what was going on at 8:15 this morning, to be able to move the pieces around. all of the references of within zones and stuff, that's not stuff that they make up. I was part of that when we did the headquarters. That's National Fire Protection Administration standards, that they have certain response times and certain circumferences. And I'm sure somewhere in this presentation or in a future presentation, the circles are going to come out where they're going to show us run times. And we're all in compliance except for a little tiny wedge of North Woburn that doesn't have, maybe a square mile that's not in compliance. And when you move the circles around, it covers it up pretty well. So, I mean, they've done a great job there. The other thing I just want to talk about is from the time I spent with the state over the last 5 years, the standards of occupational cancer, working with the fire academy and stuff in my other role, they need this stuff. I mean, this is a matter of life and death, it's real stuff. The engine 4 and engine 5, it's two bay garages that they put a dormitory next to. They're not real fire stations. These guys need real fire stations. And that'll be it, because I'm the last one to go.
President Dillon?
Thank you. One last comment, and I appreciate Councilor Papalato's questioning on the renovations. As part of Station 5, could we even pull a building permit in today's, because of the stream, the proximity to the stream?
Because there is, a good chunk of the site is a culvert that the stream goes through, and that's to the side of it. And then when it breaks out, it's protected wetlands, and that is, the entire site is jurisdictional at that point. So yeah, you very likely could not even build there.
Thank you.
Councilor DeMambro?
So with the non-conforming lot over on 5, it just makes sense to it's gotta move and you gotta build a new station. The renovations, as we all know, they take up a short amount of time span, probably a few months, maybe a year. But what's the longevity of just minor repairs and just beautification of old buildings as opposed to building a new structure, Chief? What's the life expectancy on a brand new station? 30 years, 40 years, 50 years? What's the long term?
Station 3 was built in the 1800s, Lou.
That's what I'm saying. So, but a rate of return we got on Station 3, I read an article on the history page on Facebook that said they were selling the horses in like 1919. They had an auction for the horses and carriages. So, and even that was over 100 years ago. So the rate of return on these is pretty good for $14 million. And I know that sounds like a lot of money, but considering we have houses in Woburn now worth 1.5 and up, which my father would have never in a million years ever dreamt of that. But I think 14.5 million, even though it sounds like a lot for a brand new station, 3 bay, to house the apparatus, to house our fire men and women, and give you guys the technology and all of the mechanicals that you guys need to do your job safely. I think that's a small price considering you're covering 10 square miles and over 200,000 people with 2 major highways and a major rail system running through our city that, God forbid, anything goes wrong. And I know you guys are maxed out. Again, I live on School Street. I see 5 go by my house, 4, 2, bladder. I see them all. I heard you guys this morning wailing on the sirens at 8 o'clock this morning. I heard you. So it's something that we definitely need, and I understand it is a burden. And yes, I am the city councilor up in North Woburn, and I've been hounding the mayor for my new Alta Vista school. And some way, somehow, we're gonna get it all done. But I mean, safety is priority one. I've said this to Chief Roofer, and I've said it to you. I think safety is number one in our city, and that's something we should all be focused on. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody else? To dovetail back off of what Lou said, safety is paramount for our firefighters, our first responders, the police, the EMS, and for our residents. If we don't have the right equipment, we don't have enough manpower, we're sort of screwed, so to speak. Question, I don't know who it would go to, Chief or to our engineers. With Engine 5 being a maintenance shop, have we done any soil samples over there?
We just did some testing over there, and we have the results. I don't believe we didn't do.
We have not tested soils.
So that's something we should be looking at in the near future, I would assume.
Well, again, we're talking about building a new 5 on a new location, and at some point, disposing of the property where the current 5 is and dealing with those issues probably at that point.
As part of that disposal.
All right, and I do agree, Station 5 is insufficient for the size, especially where the culvert there and the stream that's there goes to Horn Pond, which is a waterway where we get our drinking water, so even if we did put a new 5 there, there still would be issues. I do agree, there are a few spots, I'd say, in Ward 7 West Side that we could put a new Station 5. And Bill, I understand exactly what you're saying, where we have a bunch of big projects coming online that will affect the taxpayers. But we also need to look at what the taxpayers need right now. And they need their first responders to be able to work out of conditions that are equitable and safe. And they also need good response times to make sure, as we just heard, that there's no equipment available. So with that, I will take a motion from the committee.
Make a motion, the appropriation go out off the pass.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I think that's it, right? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's chiefs everywhere. Lots of chiefs. I know. Behave yourself. Charlie, thank you. Thank you. No, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
The union from this side. Yeah, the column, either how you spell it.
I call to order. Call to order. Committee on Infrastructure and Public Lands. On this committee is Council Marissa Bruin, Council Viola, Council Ferrulo, Council Papalato, and myself as chairman. DeMambro. Do I
Motion to
have,
dispense with the reading of the previous meeting minutes.
Second.
motion passes. So next on our agenda is the order that Fire Station Number 3, located at 654 Main Street, be made available for disposition and that the mayor be authorized to convey such properties. That is on the agenda. Mr. Mayor, would you have a word on this?
Thank you. So this is the order that came down about a year ago. When the headquarters was opened, the order was initially a request to grant authority to dispose of 2 and 3. Council at the time separated 2 and 3, wanted to treat them individually. 2 proceeded to auction. The auction was done, the funds were brought back to the city. And the council wanted a little bit more time to review 3, felt it was a little more complicated situation. So it's now back, and I think the president used the time to try to gauge the sentiment of the ward and the neighborhood, to get some input from them, what they thought might be the best use for that parcel and or building. Something we do tend to do whenever we're disposing of a building. You know, at the Hurl School, we talk to the neighbors about what they might like to see there. At Clap School, same thing. So I think that was the reason why this took a little bit longer to get to this point. But I think, I don't want to speak for the president, but I think we're at the point now where he has gotten a sense from his ward and his neighbors whether it's time to proceed. So I'm simply here looking for the next steps from the council. What would you like us to do?
Ask questions. Council
I'll
Ferrulo?
defer.
No, no, good.
Okay. I just, Mayor, so we're gonna make it available for disposition. That means we're gonna put it out for bid, correct?
That's essentially what you would tell me what you wanted me to do.
Okay,
Now,
'cause,
you-
yeah, if that's what we're discussing, I'm 100%.
Yeah, I mean,
For that?
the other options that were kicked around previously, and I think have been mulled over in the time since, was whether there was any additional municipal use for either the building and or the land. Like, would a park be something that the city and or the neighbors would want? I don't think there's any actual value in the city using the building, given that you heard the chief say it's from the 1800s. But I think those are the things that were on the table, and the council was then going to decide what you wanted me to do with it. You tell me that you want to dispose of it by public auction to the highest bidder, then that's what I would do. Obviously, there's procurement rules and laws that apply, just like they did in Station 2, and I would take my guidance from this council.
I just wanted to, and I guess we're gonna talk about it, but I do have concerns that we would just hand it over to one particular party. If it was going to be auctioned off, through the appropriate process, I'm 100% on board for that, just so the committee knows.
Yeah, whatever you advise me to do will be in total accordance with state law and protocols.
Council Papalato.
You took the words out of my mouth. I wanted to make sure that it was gonna be for auction so we can get the best price we can for the city, so, thank you. As long as we go in that direction, I 100% support it.
Council Viola.
I agree, the city has no use for this land. It's such a small area. Even if somebody was to drive off there, you'd be in the middle of a intersection. And I do agree that this property should be sent out for disposition to auction for the highest bidder.
Is there a motion to open this up to other members of?
I'll make that
the
motion.
city council?
Second.
Thank you.
President Dillon.
Certainly, Mayor Concanon, that was the intentions of this process. One of the things I would have hoped I was able to do is maybe have a community meeting, but after referring with our city clerk, who is far more educated on procedure and the right way to do things, she explained to me that having a community meeting could, in fact, violate the open meeting law if it wasn't done properly. There was a certain amount of risk. So that's why I kind of reached out at this point to try to talk to some of the neighborhood groups that have websites out there. And I reached out to a couple, just saying this was coming up. One of the things we talked about was there possibly a deal that we could improve that intersection instead of the box that's there. So that was talked about. I think we'll cut right to the chase, and just to put some of the councilors at ease, I believe by statute, we have to send it out to the best bidder, the highest bidder, the sealed bid package. I understand that. We couldn't make a deal and just say, take this for so much amount of money. And I do support having it sent out to bid to the highest bidder as well. I think that is the proper way to do it. I agree with you. I see no use to the building. The lot itself is less than 40,000 square feet, not even usable for, in my opinion, a park. It's hot on all, it's very tight on both sides of the boundaries as well as the back. I don't see any use. Some may argue that it's historical, and I can appreciate that. But as Councilor Papalato and others are more concerned as well about the budget and things coming, I am as well. I don't want to say that we don't have the budget to worry about things that are historical, because I think there are things in the city that need to be looked at. But I think some of them that are out there are perhaps more nostalgical than historical. And in this case, I think the best use is to dispose of it. But if the council would, maybe we could open it up to the public where this did not get out to the community. I would appreciate that, but I'm not on the committee, so I can't make that motion. Thank you.
Council Campbell.
Yeah. I'm not really in favor of giving up any of our land, the city's land. I'd rather keep it if we can, but this, we are talking about a very small parcel. If I thought that we could restore it in some way, and use it for, even for the city itself. I know that they all often need areas for their files and things like that. Has that been looked into at all, or is it in such disrepair that it doesn't make sense?
I think the latter. I
It's
mean, it's been looked at for many, many years now by a lot of different people, and I think the consensus is it is so old, in such terrible shape, the amount of money to bring it back to use would be cost prohibitive.
Yeah, okay, all right, okay. And the same, and I know that we're not talking about this, but also that piece of property for Station 5, I would rather not get rid of it. And it would be something that the city could hold on to.
We can certainly talk about that
Yeah.
at that point.
Oh, yeah, that's it, thank you.
Any other councils? Council Viola.
I'd like to make a motion to allow the public to speak.
Second.
That motion passes. Would anyone in the public like to speak on behalf of this matter regarding Station 3 and the disposition of it?
I'd like to speak, thank you.
Come on up.
Cynthia Tachi, 16 Lowell Street. I am also on the, that'd be Tachi, which, elephant in the room. I'm on the board of the Facilities Committee for the Boys and Girls Club. And we've had discussions about straightening out Clinton Street and to create a new driveway for, a new egress for the Boys and Girls Club. Because when they come out, and they're easy to take a right out of the Boys and Girls Club, but taking a left is chaotic when it's time to pick up and drop off the kids. Also, with that double intersection is, bogus, okay? It's a silly thing. People don't know where to stop, don't know when to stop. They stop in the middle of the intersection, no one can get out. It's a problem, it's an accident waiting to happen. If that parcel was used to straighten Clinton Street, it would need a certain amount of land donated by the butter behind it in order to be able to get to the Boys and Girls Club. So it wouldn't be a giveaway. It would be a trade-off. And that's my opinion. Citizen and on the committee of the Boys and Girls Club.
Anyone else that would like to speak?
Okay.
I'll say. I just want to comment on your words about not having a community meeting, and I really wish that would have happened. I know that we did have the opportunity, some of the abutters and neighbors to meet with Tochi and hear about ideas for the area, and that was a really nice opportunity to just let community members talk to each other about how they use the space and what's going on. And so I do think that there are opportunities to have community meetings and be in compliance with open meeting laws. I also think that there are opportunities to survey community members and ask people for feedback who might not have coincidentally come to a meeting like this. So I hope we have a public comment on this. But in my own opinion as a neighbor and a Rhode Island parent and a club user is my number one priority for that area is walkability and safety. I agree that the entrance to the club as a walker is a challenge, and it's also a challenge as a driver. Would I like to see that parcel as a park? Of course. And when I look at how big it is that realistic and would I use it? I don't think that I would because it's tiny. And so walkability is my major concern, and I think there's a lot to be done in that area that can make it safer.
Could you identify yourself, please?
I'm Rachel Kuberry. I live on Blake Street.
What is it again?
Rachel
Your last name?
Kuberry. K-U Berry.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
John Castle, Planning Director from Frankfurt. I think the city really should look at this in a much broader scope because of that particular intersection. The whole area is really turning into a mini master plan situation. You have the Wyman School to look at. We all know of Mr. Tachi's plans. We had a neighborhood meeting not that long ago. There is a lot of support. There's a lot of drainage issue. One drainage issue that really needs to be addressed. Just potential for that actually being addressed and once and for all being cured of these flooding conditions in people's backyards. But, cut through the chase here, that intersection being a 90-degree intersection, whereas the boys club and all the traffic associated with that at any given day is able to go out to a 90-degree intersection. All of the traffic associated with Mr. Tachi's future development that is being, I guess your plans are going to be coming forward to the planning board in no time. And the city council would be the special permit granting authority with that. And then you have the Wyman School that is coming along. It's now in the city's hands, and we're really trying to plan for that property. And part of Mr. Tachi's plans is the reconfiguration of the common in Central Square and possible elimination of that one-way right-of-way from Wyman Street, I think it's Wyman Street, coming into Main Street. So there's a lot of
Moving parts.
yes, and I think the city really should think seriously about what is the best utilization of this particular fire station property. Is it a right of way? I think everybody's in agreement that's been paying attention to this, that it's not a building that can be rehabbed. Does it have historic significance? Perhaps, but realistically, it doesn't really have a future. It's like every tree, sooner or later, the tree's gonna fall down, struck by lightning, whatever, but it doesn't last forever. But here we have an opportunity to really think, in a master plan manner, what is the best utilization of that property relative to straightening out a traffic mess that's out there now. You have a 5-way intersection, which would be a 90-degree 4-way intersection, properly signalized and properly managed, where you don't have diagonal squares on Main Street, and you have to stop, before you get to the light and all of that, all of what we experience on any given day. So, it's one of those unique opportunities where, we put our minds together, we can work out the best solution for the overall area and the traffic that's associated with it. That's pretty much a smorgasbord of traffic flow right now. That's my 2 cents.
Councilor Mercer.
I'll just reiterate what I said earlier. I will not support just handing this over to anyone. I didn't support it last year when it was brought up. Whatever master plan there is to build whatever is going to be potentially built, that will be the time to talk about how things get reconfigured. Clearly, there is some value to this piece of property because it came up last year and here it is again. And it's not fair to the taxpayers. I won't support just handing it over to one developer. I will not do that.
Councilor Torp.
Thank you. I'm gonna piggyback off Council Mercer Bruin's statement, and, I am 100% for disposing of the fire station and putting it out to bid to the highest bidder. And if that ends up being Mr. Tachi, fantastic. But again, I would not support just handing it over. I think it'd be a great asset to have with the reconfiguration of that area, but there's a process to go through that needs to be properly handled for that individual to be the highest bidder, right? So I think that's what we're discussing here is, do we dispose of it? And Mayor Concanon, I think that's all that's being asked. If the council decides to dispose of this, it would be at the council's decision at the highest bidder, and then you would go through procedurally to make sure all the state and federal laws are handled or abided by.
I will abide by what this council.
Thank
You looking for motions?
So,
I just have one more question.
Councilor
Campbell, yeah. We did look at it last year, and I guess Mr. Mayor, what is your thought about what you're hearing about potentially helping with the traffic flow? I believe we had Jay Corey here as well last year
Yeah.
talking about this. So is that what you're thinking as well? Or are you thinking of holding it and researching more about what's going on? Or what's your thoughts
Well,
around it?
we had this similar conversation a year ago. And these issues came up and Jay was asked to produce whatever engineering plan he may have been working on that would straighten out the intersection. He presented that. His council chewed on it for a little while. I do understand what John Cashel was saying about an opportunity. It doesn't come around all the time. You know, with the Wyman and Mr. Tachi's proposed plans for the other side of the street. You know, are we going to see a dramatic change in that area probably in the next 5 to 10 years? Yeah, I think so. Might a straightened intersection at Clinton and Main and, you know, across the street, might that simplify matters? Yeah. But I'm not here asking you to do one thing or another. This council has had this for about a year now to try to decide what it wants to do with that building and land. If you tell me you're ready to make a decision and you're telling me to auction it off, then that's what we'll do. If you want more time to look into this bigger picture stuff, you know, I can wait. We held on to the Plimpton School for 42 years. We hold on to this fire station for 42 months.
I mean,
I'm open, I'm listening to what this council says it wants.
Okay, I mean, I guess with saying that, I feel like if we know potentially that a large petition's coming forward and that it could potentially change that area and it could be beneficial for the city to be able to use that property to help things, to help the traffic and to help Clinton Street, then I feel like we should hold on to it until we know for sure. Would we, by holding on for 6 months, is that going to be such a big deal? I mean, why not wait and see what's going on? And then maybe we could use that property to help with the Boys and Girls Club and the flow. Even though I do believe at the time last year, Jay Duran didn't feel like it was going to make that much of an improvement. But I'm not sure at the time if we knew of the potential building that was going to be taking place there. So that's my opinion. Can we wait 6 more months? You know, then we have the opportunity to say, oh, yes, let's just put it out to bid. We'll take the money. It's not going to do anything. Or we hold on to it and we say, okay, good. Then we do need that little piece of property just to make this work. But that's my opinion. I don't think
Chairman, are you
there's a
ready for a
rush.
motion?
I don't think there's a
Because I'm going to make a motion.
Okay.
30 seconds.
Go ahead.
I'll be real quick. Everything else aside, except for public safety of the Boys Club, anything we can do to give the Boys Club better access, I think is important. In 1997, when those kids overdosed down there, we lost our egress and entrance and exit, and we had to take the kids up the hill because everybody parked in the driveway. We had no secondary exit to get in there, and I was there that night. If anything we could do to help it, any other projects or anything else aside, if that gives us the ability to punch in through the side, whatever we look at, I think that would be beneficial. 30 seconds is up.
What is the will of the committee?
Could be, sorry.
Nope, Council Viola.
Hearing about the project that's possibly coming before us, I did attend that meeting, the neighborhood meeting. It does seem potentially that the developer in question could possibly be the only person that would actually bid on this auction for the site. And if by chance they are the highest bidder, then somehow they could fix that intersection there with mitigation funds or some other way of doing it. But I'd be all in favor of sending this out to pass tonight.
One second.
Yeah.
Tachi, did you want to say something?
I
saw your hand a couple times.
I did. I don't want to talk about the merits of things per se, but that John Cashel said it better than I could ever say it. And what I was going to ask was exactly what Councilor Campbell just said. We're not looking for a gift. We're looking to avoid a missed opportunity. we've already experienced the fact when we erred on the side of transparency, we had some properties adjacent to us under agreement. And we said, we're gonna take a risk and invite in the neighborhood beyond the legal abutters. I think we had 70 people that attended this, and we showed all. People changed their purchase price connections to us dramatically. I'm concerned that somebody is going to purchase this property and leverage the city and us out of the opportunity to improve public safety. I agree that the city should not dispose of land. In keeping, God doesn't make any more. Please, I think that Councilor Campbell's in the right hand. Hold it. It's going to be, if we propose and the council approves our proposal, it's going to become a public street. It's going to be your land, not my land. And we would end up tearing down a contaminated building and doing significant improvements for you as well as us. So please just hold on to the option, as Councilor Campbell has proposed. Give the mayor and yourselves the opportunity to weigh the information and make the decision in the future. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, can I make one more comment? You know, and I'm just providing this as a school of thought, and advocating for anything other than this is one of those unique situations that really does have a public good involved with it if we make the right decision. And what is that right decision? Straightening out an irregular public way, public intersection that's in dire need of. So the public, one of the public good is the voice of the traffic, and that being straightened out once and for all. His proposed project would benefit from this, but the city would benefit from his project benefit. You know, you have to look at this planning aspect of it. You end up having a much better designed project if this property that the city owns becomes a public right of way. So that's part of it, but it's a public good. It's a unique situation, really. It's a true public good that can result from the right decision to be made, and not the city just looking to sell a piece of property. There's a lot of properties that the city owns that has no use whatsoever, and there has to be a complete inventory of that. This city probably could make a tremendous amount of money with the proper inventory and going through the auctioning process of selling property. We did this in Hudson, New Hampshire. It took a lot of diligence, but you know, we ended up building in that town a brand new senior center just from auctioning off 7 properties that the town determined did not have, you know, a really useful. And the city of Woburn, with the complete inventory of its properties, could move in that direction and pay significantly for uses that we're planning to build, fire stations, future schools. There's a lot of asset in properties that aren't being utilized in the city and, you know, not really being paid attention to, you know, what their future could hold for the city.
Okay.
Chairman, I make a motion, we return to the regular order of business.
I would like to, I have a question. Go ahead. I think it's pretty well known at this point that everybody here would love to see better access for the Boys and Girls Club. I think that's been well established, and I think that many people think that Mr. Tachi's proposal of the Central Square area would be a good one. But I also think that many people on this council have no desire to hand a property to anybody, right? As a builder myself, I would love to be handed free property. It just doesn't happen, nor should it. And I think there is concern that, you know, with the proposal that's out there, it has been made public, that someone could leverage that property potentially against the city or the developer, and it could be an issue. With that being said, does the city have the ability to have somebody, whether it's our own assessor's office or an outside firm, assess the value, the fair market value of that property, and then if the council decided to, can it be sold at that value to a specific individual if it was determined to be for the betterment of the city? Is that an option? You know, because again, that's not handing the property to somebody, it's the city getting money for that property, and it's not just giving it away. It's just a question I have at this point.
We actually went down this road a little bit last year. We had the assessed value brought to the committee. It's probably in the record somewhere. I don't think the committee asked at that point to take the next step to get a legal opinion to answer that kind of question, Rob. But we could certainly do that. We could ask Mark to explore all options under state law in these circumstances and give you an opinion on steps forward if you'd like.
Councilman Byrne?
First, I want to say, again, I appreciate the idea. But I'll say what I said last year when that idea was sort of tossed around. That's basically just an end run around the process. Because you're saying we're still going to give it to the person who's going to value the most from it. I know people are going to make arguments that the city is going to value from this. But at the end of the day, if that intersection is so bad, we shouldn't be waiting for someone to build something to fix it, right? That's not how this works. That's not how this works. We have a responsibility for public safety, but we don't have a responsibility for some massive development that we don't know that this entire city will want. And it's just not one group of people that gets to decide if that is the right development there. And at the end of the day, when the development, if it passes at all, if it passes muster on the city council, there's going to have to be traffic mitigation with or without this piece of property. So let's keep all of that in mind. And at the end of the day, some regular Joe off the street doesn't get this kind of consideration. It's just not fair. It's just not. And nobody can convince me here that this is just for the safety of Woburn, because I haven't heard anyone come up and say, hey, we better redesign this and fix it now. The only time that ever came up is when this project came up. So I love the Boys and Girls Club. We all do. It's not about that, but that's a nice little nugget to put at you to say, hey, you have to do this. This is about a development and a big project. This is not about anything else. We have a piece of property to dispose of. We should dispose of it. So I'm going to make a motion that the council take the action to send the order back that the city dispose of this property.
Didn't we vote to, before you
Yes.
make that motion, can I have one last?
It's not up to me, sir. That's up to the chairman.
Thank you. I just want to thank the chair, and thank the committee for hearing this out and taking it through the process. That was my goal from the beginning. Thank you.
I'll make a motion that the order be adopted and sent back, that the city dispose of this piece of property through the proper channels, through auction. That's the motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion
to adjourn?
Thank you.
Second.
We are adjourned.
What was the vote on that, Mr. Chairman? Was it 4-0 or 3-1?
4-0.
Thank you.
I would like to call the Committee on Ordinance, Charter, and Rules to order. I am Counselor at Large Robert Toro, and as second chair will serve as the Chairman Pro Tem in the absence of Chairman Demers. Other members of the committee are Councilor Mercer Bruin, Councilor Ferrulo, and Councilor DeMambro.
I'll make a motion to waive the reading of previous minutes.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. First item on the agenda is the 1985 Woburn zoning ordinance as amended by adding a new section 34, non-age restricted multifamily housing overlay district, MBTA OD. I think Planning Director Cashel will be presenting at this point.
As everybody is aware, we've been tackling this particular issue pretty much since March when I first arrived. And most recently, the planning board held a public hearing on the proposed ordinance as delivered to the planning board by the city council. Recently, the board did take final action in formulating a recommendation to the council. Everybody got a copy of that. It was authored by myself per action of the planning board, again, from the August 13th meeting. And the letter of recommendation from the planning board is dated August 22nd. I don't want to really read that, but I will. Did everybody have a chance to read that recommendation? Sorry for, it was rather complicated, even though it's only a page and a half. It took some time to really put that together. In a legally, what I believe is a legally tenable position for the city to take advantage of what the city has within its zoning ordinance language now, that what we're trying to establish, if in fact the city does adopt this particular set of zoning ordinances, that any proposed MBTA 3A application, which basically means an affordable housing development, let me back up. It's a multifamily, non-age restricted housing development that would be applied for within this proposed overlay district. And, the overlay district has been pretty well depicted and established. And if we want to put a name on it, Lou and Darlene really came up with this idea of this particular MBTA overlay district being comprised of parcels of land on the east side of the commuter rail in North Woburn, from the south border of the south parking lot of the MBTA Anderson site, all the way to the Wilmington line. And that comprises 10 actual parcels. And everybody did get a copy of this particular map. And it clearly depicts what this overlay district would be comprised of, and it's 54 acres of land. We're required by statute and guidelines in Massachusetts for the city of Woburn to come up with a minimum of 50 acres. As an overlay district, that would theoretically, if it was developed, all MBTA multifamily housing, that 54 acres would consist of, again, totally theoretical, but 2,634 units. In this particular case, it's a little bit more than that. Would that happen? We've had this discussion in all likelihood, in all powers of God and earth. You'd never have 2,600 apartment units associated with this. It would probably be developed in the future of multi-uses, just as most properties of this size are, this many acres and more, but they're mixed uses. We've seen in the last 20 years along Commerce Way, yes, a lot of multifamily development. And how did that originate? It originated through zoning and market demand. You can't really have a growing economy, a sustainable growing economy, without the availability of housing, and especially what they call affordable housing. And I think a lot of people say there's nothing affordable about affordable housing in Massachusetts. Many people, with sizable incomes really couldn't afford what it costs to put a roof over your house, over your head. So, affordable is kind of an illusion for, being able to put a roof over your head, be able to reasonably afford it in this, in this particular state and in this region of Massachusetts. All that being said, is the recommendation. It it does reference Exhibit 1, and Exhibit 1 being a document that was also attached to the recommendation, and that being a 21-page document, 23-page document, which is, or consists of the statute 3A and the amending language that was adopted by Governor Baker just before he left office, put forward to the governor by supermajorities of both the House and the Senate. So the language came out first back in 2020, and then the guidelines originated from the statute. And the guidelines have been revised significantly 3 different times, and most recently in August of 2022, or excuse me, August of 2023. That's the most recent revision of these guidelines that go along with 3A. I guess I'll leave it at that. If you have any questions relative to the planning board's recommendation, I'll try to handle them right now and see if we can, if you want to. We do have till December 31st to take final action, so there's no immediacy to this going back out to the council. But if we wanted to hammer it out tonight, I'm ready to do something like that, if you want to.
Councilor Mercer Bruin?
Thank you, and thank you, Director Cashel, and to everybody on the planning board that did so much work, and everybody on this committee. First thing I would say is, I would urge this council not to be so quick to move this along. There's a few things we are waiting for. We're waiting to hear about a couple of lawsuits that are pending in early October that could change the scope of this whole thing. The other thing, I appreciate the map, and I appreciate the time that went into the map. And Councilor DeMambro, I'll never forget that Saturday you called me and said, I think this would work. And to some extent, I'm still in agreement, but here's where I have a lot of heartburn. Aside from the fact that they're jamming this down our throat. So I will never support it. But again, some things for the people to think about. 39 of the 55 acres belong to the MBTA. And we've heard it depicted that it's very unlikely that most of this isn't going to be built. We've even heard people from the MBTA 3A community say, don't worry about it. It's not going to get built. When 39 acres belong to the MBTA and they're reaching out to us, what was the date? June 4th, to have a meeting to talk about the 39 acres? That says to me, not only are they going to develop it, but they already have the plans in hand. So I think at the very least, the councilors that do support this, we should hear from the MBTA at our next public hearing. Let's hear from Scott Bosworth and see what he has to say about these 39 acres. It's just an idea. Have you met with him already?
With
Director?
Mr. Bosworth?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
Have you met with anybody from the MBTA about these 39 acres?
There's discussion, but what
As luck would have it, Mr. Bosworth actually did reach out to us.
Great, so we'll keep, I still have the floor.
And he's
Mayor
here.
Concannon.
No.
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. That would be great. But Mayor, if he's willing, I think it would be great for us to hear from them about what they are thinking for the 39 out of 55 belongs to them. They clearly have something in mind. Maybe it's something fabulous.
He reached out to me and asked to meet with me Thursday. So I'm going to have an initial discussion with him, hear what he has to say, and I can certainly brief the council after that.
Okay, and I think it would be great if he came to the public hearing, if he was so.
I can ask him. I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe I'll make that motion that we send a communication to Scott Bosworth and invite him to our public hearing on this matter, which I believe is the 17th?
9/17.
9/17, that's in the form of a motion.
So we have a motion to send communications to Mr. Bosworth to attend our, okay, get second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so that was one of my biggest concerns, because as I thought about it, all the stuff that you read in the news, and it's not just you, Director Cashel, who are saying, you know, it's unlikely. You're getting that from the folks at the
No,
MBTA. It's
Can I
unlikely.
just interject
Yeah,
before
sure.
we get off on a
Yeah.
tangent? Everybody here at the table must realize that IP2 zoning exists. That's the primary zoning district that this MBTA property is located in. And then there's an overlay district.
Right.
You know, and that's referenced in the board's.
Yep, I helped write it,
Yeah, right.
but it requires a special permit.
Right.
This does not.
Yeah, I'm not here to
Okay.
debate anything, I'm just stating the facts. The fact of the matter is, right, the zoning district, the overlay district, regardless of this, right, does provide for an applicant, a developer, you know, man on the moon could come here with an application to develop that property in accordance with either the primary or the overlay district. Okay, that can happen. It doesn't matter. This has nothing to do with that. Because anybody can develop that property today and this, no housing would be produced relative to this statute. They may produce multifamily housing with a mixed development and not apply this statute and go through the city council for the special permits. And, you know, whatever side role the planning board would play, you know, site plan review aspects of it. So this does not forego or prohibit an applicant from applying for any type of use that's allowed within the primary zoning district or the overlay district that already exists. This is an overlay district that's proposed on top of it, so only so that we, the state, officially comply with a state statute that right now we're obligated to comply with, or face the possibility of losing a lot of state revenue, which we as a city cannot afford to lose. So that's all that this is. This doesn't produce one housing unit. All it requires, if you read the guidelines closely, all it requires of us is to create this overlay district. And that's it. It doesn't require us to produce any housing. And it says that clearly in the guidelines, clearly as about. So, you know, no matter what, if the MBTA decides they want to develop the land, they're just like any other developer, okay? And we're gonna have to deal with the application that comes before us. And whether or not it's approved and say it's denied, then we're gonna have to face, you know, a court battle in all likelihood. And that goes without saying for any project that's proposed in the city of Woburn that has the right to apply for a permit. It's not a denial permitting process. It's a permitting process for uses that are allowed within the zoning district, whether it's a site plan allowance or it's a special permit requirement.
Councilor Mercer-Boone?
Yeah,
That's the reality.
Director Cashel, I know that you know the difference between site plan review and special permit review. And I know every single person on this council knows the difference and where our authority lies and where we have very little authority. The MBTA has not expressed any desire to build anything down there, but all of a sudden, it's not gonna be special permit anymore, it's gonna be site plan review. I wonder why they're so interested. Because it's so much easier. And so, yes.
How are they going, can I ask, Madam Alderman?
Yes.
How are they going to apply for a special, a site plan review project? It would have to be a completely multifamily development, non-age restricted. That's all they could apply for by right, would be that type of development.
Right, and would it be by right? It would be.
It would be by right, under the statute, if they
Under-
apply, if this becomes an overlay district.
Right.
If this.
The MBTA 3A, right.
So.
Again, that's my concern.
Yeah.
And I know, listen, this train left the station a long time ago, but I am not gonna shut up about it until we have the last and final public hearing. Because there's more going on here, Director Cashel, than everyone even knows. And especially in Woburn, I can't speak for the other towns, but 39 of 55 acres, 39 of 55 acres. So why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? When we have the presentation from Mr. Bosworth, if I'm wrong, I will be the first to stand up and say, oh my God, I'm sorry, I was wrong.
Can I hold you to that?
Absolutely.
100%.
And for as long as I've been doing this, if I got it wrong, I say I got it
All
wrong.
right, I'll hold you to that.
Do we have any other members of the committee that would like to speak?
On this proposed, what they're asking for here, is it for 25% or 10%? Because down in that area, isn't it 25% for affordable as opposed to what the MBTA is requiring? And I believe the MBTA is 10%. Am I wrong on that? Or-
You know, and one thing, and I'll answer your question directly, but one thing, I'm not advocating for any of this. I'm as opposed to this and opposed to it in public since the first time I read it.
Agreed.
As strongly as you are.
Agreed. I know.
You know,
I know.
the state is taking away what has been the cornerstone of Massachusetts law, which is we're in charge through home rule of planning for our future within our 12 and a half square miles. You know, it's an overreach whenever the government tries to do this. And I am sick and tired myself as a patriot of these United States and what I consider being a student of the Constitution and respecting it and knowing that we're a constitutional republic. And we all have the right to free speech. And we should all fight for that right to free speech and not be pushed around by the state government or the federal government whenever it harms us. And in this particular case, this statute does harm communities. It does not allow them to plan for their future the way they want to plan for it. So is it overreach? Yeah. Am I against it? 100%. But you know what? A lot of times, state government doesn't play fairly. Federal government doesn't play fairly. A lot of local governments don't play fairly. We all know that. We're all humans. We're all trying to make it in this world. In any event, we all have our own special interests, and some are more self-righteous than others, and are on the right side of things, not for their own interests, but for the public interest. In this particular case, I'll just get to the point. If the MBTA comes to the city of Woburn and wants to do something with their property, you know, they have the right, just like everybody else does, to develop their property.
Absolutely. In accordance to our current laws, but
Director-
I take issue with this law, but
Director
thank you.
Cashel, do you mind, I think, Councilor DeMambro is still waiting for us.
10% affordable or 25%?
Well, that's the problem, because within the guidelines, and I specifically mentioned, you know, a careful reading of the guidelines. The state guidelines having to do with 3A, in all likelihood, because we do have 10% affordable provided for within our zoning ordinance, they would go along with that. Anything beyond 10%, as the guidelines provide, have to be approved by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, HLC. They have to approve that. And then it gets a little bit more stringent. If it goes beyond 15% into the 20% realm, then we as a community have to prove that the amount of affordable housing that we want to require for a by right project, it has to qualify insofar as the city proving that that amount of affordable housing is necessary in the city of Woburn. So that's a litmus test that they have built into the guidelines.
Director Cashel, just
Yeah.
because I've been following this right along, I'm chin deep in it, as well as Council Mercer Bruin. I thought that Governor Healy said she didn't even care what the rents were. She didn't want to put a ceiling on the rents. She just wanted apartments. She wanted housing with very little restriction. And now we're teetering on to maybe 10% affordable, but we don't want to go into the 25 range. I don't understand any of this. It's like they want to build apartments, but they don't care if the rent's at $10,000 a month. It just doesn't seem like they care. They just want buildings.
Per the city council's request in writing to the planning board, and this was a major part of our debate on this, they want to go and or they're in agreement with the planning, I mean, the board, city council. They're in agreement, and it's in the recommendation. We want the language of the proposed zoning amendment to now include up to 25% affordable housing within a by right MBTA overlay district applied for project. So that's what we want to put as part of our zoning ordinance. You know, if we do have such a crisis, and I believe we do have a housing crisis, you know, just isn't enough affordable housing. Well, how come the state didn't even include one word about affordable housing in the statute?
That's what's.
And then in the
I just-
guidelines, the original iteration of the guidelines did not include anything having to do with affordable housing. And when this first came out, and I was a member of the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission at a table bigger than this with 30 people around it, I said, this statute and the guidelines that have resulted from it, to me, read as if developers, real estate developers authored all of this. And the state legislature just said, yay, and approved it with super majorities. I don't think I don't know of any state rep or state senator that didn't vote for it. And then it was signed by Governor Baker on his way out of office. So, you know, that's what we have. We had a state statute with a housing crisis relative to affordability, and the legislators didn't think highly enough to include language having to do with anything with affordable. And it wasn't until people started clamoring, particularly planners, you know, where's the affordability factor? They ran back the guideline authors. It's a group of elves somewhere in the State House, and they reauthored revised the guidelines to include affordability. And then there were more questions to it, so they revised it again. So, and then this is what we finally have, is the third iteration, which may be further revised too, by the elves at the State House, wherever they are.
Councilor Mercer Bruin?
Yep. So, Councilor DeMambro, as you know, we requested the affordable housing component be put in to this housing. And the reason it's so important, and I know everybody here knows why it's so important, because as soon as they start building everything they're gonna build, if there isn't an affordable housing component, the reason they don't care is because then they default to 40B, which was put together in 1960, I don't know, 1960 something. So they start building all these things, whether they're affordable or not, they can just turn around and say, you're not at your quota anymore, chop chop. So so in a nutshell, that's why it was important.
For every additional house that's built in Woburn, that increases the housing stock. And if you don't require at least a minimum of 10% of any housing development to be comprised of affordable within the guidelines of 40B, then it's a slippery slope. So you build 1,000 units of housing without an affordability factor equal to at minimum 10%, then you're going to end up getting another 40B project proposed in Woburn. It'll never end.
Right.
So it's really important that you at least require 10%. And the state now does recognize that as a minimum of a by right amount for MBTA proposed applications, non-age restricted MBTA housing. You know, should we stress more than 10%? Well, why not? That particular underlying overlay district requires 25% affordable with any mixed-use residential commercial development that's allowed by special permit in the city council. You know, again, this overlay district would be strictly, when it comes to the MBTA housing, it's strictly for housing. It's not mixed use, you know. So in the zoning ordinance language right now, it doesn't mention anything about mixed use being allowed by right. And I just find it hard to believe, you know, that we're gonna have this enormous multifamily non-age restricted housing development proposed by the MBTA. I don't see that happening. I can see them wanting a mixed use, because the whole idea with the MBTA is to bring jobs and housing entertainment, passive recreational, everything mixed into one. And that's the name of the game with development today and has been for many, many years. So any development that may take place on the MBTA property is probably going to emulate, that mixture of uses. And I always categorize it as designing, if you will, a village within a city, a town within a city, depending on the size of it. But, it's a self-sustained, multi-use, living, working, entertainment, open space, passive recreational environment that really creates an incredible place, incredibly good type of development where you can live, work, and play.
Director
All
Cashel,
within the
I'm gonna
car.
interject here. Can I have a motion to open it up to non-committee members?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone else like to speak?
Just
President
one
Dillon.
question. Very interesting, Councilor Boone, that October, this lawsuit is supposed to come to perhaps a head. Good to know. I was not aware of
We're
that.
not under any obligation to fly this thing out, and I hope everybody knows that.
Thank you.
So I'm hoping we don't do that tonight and get some more. It would be great if we did hear from the MBTA. If not, we'll go from there. But,
Councilor Campbell?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, no reason to rush it. It's looking good. We're getting there. Let's just finish with the last puzzle pieces and make sure we hear from the MBTA and find out maybe what they might be thinking. I agree with the affordable housing going to a higher percentage. As we know, the apartments at the Woburn Village are over $3,000 a month. So even with the affordable housing part of it, it's still the amount is way over what most people can afford, or at least the younger people who are just starting out. So I believe that we need to go to the higher rate. If we can, that would be great. I mean, thankfully, several years ago now, we passed 15% for the city, which really has helped us, and it has helped us stay at our quota, which we need to be against the 40B projects, which then, of course, then we have no say, mostly, at all. So I say we keep it in committee and we just keep moving and getting more information.
Thank you. What is the will of the committee?
Leave it in committee, just leave it in committee.
Okay.
You don't need a motion for
We'll
that.
leave that in committee.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Motion to,
No, we have one
oh,
more.
sorry.
Little premature. Next up is 317.
John,
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
I promise I'll be the first one to say I was wrong.
And can I just say one more thing? Okay. Even if we don't, the city doesn't end up adopting an MBTA ordinance, I mean, the only thing we'd be in violation is not doing that. Again, if the MBTA is planning something and they're gonna develop something, they have to apply for it in accordance with existing zoning. So that's their prerogative. It's just like everybody else, apply for whatever you want within a zoning district that allows for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next up is 317 NB Development LLC for a proposed zoning amendment to section 5.2.1.4 of the Woburn zoning ordinance to include language regarding New Boston Street Bridge permanent easements and allowing such access easements to be deemed conforming for legal frontage and legal access. Just state your name, please.
Good evening, John Paul Martinetti on behalf of 317 NB Development. Attorney Tarby was not able to attend this evening, and he had asked me, at the committee's discretion, whether you'd like to continue it in committee or I can potentially answer any questions you may have on the petition.
Committee, yep, Council DeMembro.
So it's my understanding that the reason for this is because of the takings of the properties in areas down there for the bridge project, so that in the future, if any of those parcels should be sold, any of those businesses with the land, that those are still conforming lots, even though pieces of certain properties down there were taken in order to complete the bridge or assist the bridge in being.
Yeah, so that's absolutely the case, but it's a current, not necessarily just a future proposition, but a current proposition. Essentially, the permanent easements that took place, where 317 New Boston is, the bridge is, because of configuration and roadway angles and whatnot, is essentially swinging across what was previously our front lawn there.
Yes.
And up and over, but because of the elevations, essentially, we're unable to have a conforming driveway. So in coordination with Jay Corey's office, they came up with a design whereby we essentially have a shared driveway with the adjacent property that kind of takes us in from the side. So technically, we're not entering over our property when the bridge is done, and we're unable to create an entrance on our property because where our parking lot is, you're effectively gonna be looking up about 16 feet at the new roadway height. So, to that end, we looked at it and said, whether it's today and we have a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot tenant that's going into the existing building and it's a change of use, or for whatever reason, the building commissioner says, you know, now you need a special permit because you're non-conforming, because you have this odd entrance. So we looked at it and said, how do we basically just be consistent with our ability to be conforming now versus in the future, where we look and say, you know, as you know, sometimes simple move-in, move-outs can cause major disruptions and cause tenants to go elsewhere. So we're looking at it and saying, we basically just want to stay status quo of sorts. We're not looking for nothing new, nothing different, essentially just a zoning change so that we can remain a conforming property.
As a professional legal courtesy, due to you guys giving the land up
Yeah.
so that we can get the new bridge so that
It's a wonderful project.
design can be built up as it's designed.
We are not first in line on any changes there. We've got some wonderful tenants in place. And we're just looking to make sure that we can essentially retain what we had prior to takings.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Do we have a motion to open up to non-voting members?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? President Dillon?
So basically, what you're trying to do is protect your property rights that you had before, and now that the bridge is opening up and they had run into some construction problems as they proceeded, it affected you. So you just want to protect your property.
Well, it's been from the design phase, so it's not something that came up during construction. It's from the get-go. But it was just something we looked at and said, geez, we're going to become non-conforming. And of course, the first answer is, okay, well, how do we become conforming? And you look at that elevation and just say, I would never stand before city council and say, so we want to come up at a 45-degree angle on the curve of a bridge and then put an entrance in. So we said, if the city can address it prior to construction, which they did with design, then we're just looking to fix that non-conformity.
Thank you for the explanation.
Councilor Lastrulo?
So the changes basically created a landlocked parcel, but we took away your right to access to your property?
So the city did it in the form of permanent easements as opposed to, you know, actual deeded takings, which I think came at a significant savings. But effectively, our entrance will enter over a permanent easement over the neighboring property. They will gain an entrance off of that, and we will gain an entrance off of that. So it essentially becomes a shared driveway.
So that's the Rupton Road, I go up there every Saturday morning, so that's the Rupton roadway that's there?
That's actually temporary. That's a temporary road. That road they've got, the permanent road will be more of a direct left into not a cul-de-sac, but a widened driveway where the adjacent property will enter and we will enter before the bridge really gets to a significant slope.
Thank you.
So it was a really creative design by Jay Corey and VHB to address the issue at hand.
Thanks.
Anyone else? What is the will of the committee?
I'd like to send this out to pass.
Second.
We have a motion to send out the zoning amendment out to pass. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
a motion to adjourn.
Second. So moved.
Second. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, all right.
You can always use that advice.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah, it's warm. It's warm.
Sorry. No, no worries. Darlene, there are a number of documents.
Yeah, the memos I sent over.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gordon, for putting those in there.
Where's the high end one? City clerk did.
Oh,
I got them
okay,
in the
thank you
truck.
to
I
the
brought
city
these
clerk.
out. I was like, so the ones that are,
Payday's all done.
That's why I said.
the ones that are standing up need to be accepted.
I got a brand new bar.
These are this is the document that Attorney Tarby sent over about 5:30.
Yes,
With the
thank you,
suggested
Do we have enough of those for everybody, Gordon, or just?
I do.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so first, let me take care of business here. I'm gonna convene, oh, I'm waiting for you to sit
Okay, I
down.
have copies of everything else too, if people would like that.
That would be great, Gordon.
Again, this is the city clerk's doing. Very thorough.
That's right, give credit where credit is due, right?
But you're following through.
Even printed on the back. Let's see.
I did.
Nice.
Save the city a couple of shekels. This is a memo from Jay, Corey.
Thank
Thank
you, I already accepted this one.
These are two memos from Mr. Minix. One is dated August 28th, the other one was dated today.
Does everybody have a copy of that?
I distributed them now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Minix. That's the memo regarding,
Communication with Jay
drainage.
Duran.
Yeah, okay.
No, they're two different ones. Here, Joanne, I have one, I have
Yeah,
a
thank
copy
you.
of each for you.
I thought they were.
Yes, we already did.
Yep.
So, we'll accept this.
That, yes, and this plan too.
Okay,
That plan was not accepted.
okay.
This is for you.
I am going to ask you,
I'm sorry for all this paper. It just
Nope.
came in.
this is why I asked to have it put in the file, because we're not scrambling and you guys are amazing. Yep, hang on one second. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna call to order the Committee on Special Permits. I'm the chair, Councilor Mercer Bruin, Ward 5. We also have City Councilor Campbell, City Councilor DeMambro, and City Councilor Demers, who is not with us this evening. You okay?
Yeah.
I make a
Oh, yeah,
motion to accept the readings of the previous journal minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Counselor Campbell? Yeah, it has to, it should go to somebody on the committee, but thank you very much. You are? Mercer Bruin, Campbell, DeMambro, Demers. Viola. Trying to do the right thing so Lindsay doesn't kick our butt. Chuck, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Immense.
All right, make a motion to accept the following items to make them part of the permanent record. Proposed conditions to the special permit dated today, September 9th, 2024. To accept the following a memo from the engineering department dated August 27th, 2024. A communication from Benjamin Minix, August 28th, 2024. And a site plan update as of June 27th, 2024.
Second.
Actually,
There's another communication from Mr. Minix.
I got it right here.
September 9.
Yep.
There's a new revision.
And then also an email from Mr. Minix, 9th, 2024.
JP, are we good on that site plan, or are you questioning?
Well, I think he's got a more recent site plan.
Okay, so, okay. All right, well, why don't we, I'll turn the floor over to you, sir, if you've got a new site plan, anything you want to point out to us? Maybe?
Sure.
But entertain a motion to open it up to committee of the
So
whole.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening, Glenn Wood, Rubner Rudman. I'm sitting in for Joe, my partner who can't be here this evening. This is a follow-up to the city council public hearing that occurred on August 20th, at which time we presented the project to seek special permit for the child care center, which is an 8,500 square foot space within the existing structure. The use is allowed as of right or by right. The special permit is needed because of the fact that the open space requirement for the existing building is non-conforming. With me here tonight are John Paul, as well as Anita Martinetti Sasso, the Executive Director of Launch and Learn Educare Center. Ben Menix is here, our engineer from Eaglebrook Engineering, as well as Scott Thornton from Vanessa and Associates. I think my understanding, and I watched the hearing before and have talked to Joe about this a few times, that there was a favorable discussion, positive discussion at the last meeting. And this is going to be Anita's third project that she'd be looking to do in terms of this business. There were several issues that came up. One was related to drainage issues that Ben can speak to presently, and then there was some traffic mitigation discussion that Scott can speak to. Special condition 5, part of which is in red, which we added in this evening, addresses that pedestrian traffic mitigation. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ben, please. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I'll just answer everything. Jamie, Ben Menix with Eaglebrook Engineering. So just to give a rough background of what we discussed for the site, we're proposing a daycare facility at the southeast corner of the existing building to include some parking lot improvements to allow access to the daycare facility. The access to the site again is on Washington and Cedar Street. We're also proposing approximately 8,000 square foot turf area for outdoor playground area for the children. And then what I've submitted, or what we've submitted since our last meeting, are just some addendum plans to really facilitate discussion with Mr. Duran. And that was really intended to include all members so they know what Mr. Duran and I are discussing. Basically, the summary of that discussion is we changed one manhole to a catch basin. We added some additional fencing around that catch basin so children can't get into that area. Additional gates so that maintenance can access that without obstruction, and some additional signage. And then Mr. Duran wanted some clarification as to proposed sewer flows from the daycare, as well as estimated water usage, and some extra highlighting of what the daycare and the vacant space behind it look like within the existing building. So the additional site plans we submitted are not really substantive in nature for the proposal. They're really just so that you have an idea of what we're discussing as far as the engineering is concerned for the project. And happy to answer it.
Does anybody have any questions? If none, then I'll just ask one. So, Superintendent Duran came up with some things that he wanted implemented. What I'd like to see, please, before we go back to the public hearing, is the things that he asked for. I'd like to see highlighted here as conditions, specifically as it relates to signage and covering of that manhole cover. And I'm not nitpicking, it's just this, once this goes in a file, if there's violations, we can just pull this out of a file or off of a computer. Very difficult for the building department just to pull them off plans. So I'm just explaining that so you know that's why.
Perfectly understand. At this point, all I've had is phone discussion with Mr. Duran, so I'd certainly welcome anything in writing that I can directly respond to, so we're all on the same page as what's being proposed.
So, I was looking at this September 9th and it said, I'm following up and I'm following it up. So have you not You haven't gotten anything from,
All I've had is 2 phone discussions with Mr. Duran since last Friday. So I was able to get something back to him and to you today, but that's as far as.
okay, we'll take care of that tonight. Does anybody else have any questions? Councilor
Just,
Dillon, then Councilor DeMambro?
Yes. Just, based on the previous establishments that run their buildings, you know, I always like to see somebody in front of us that has a track record. Matt and Eddie's have a great track record with us, so I will support this. Thank you.
Councilor DeMambro?
I just have one question on the catch basin situation, because that was what popped up the last time. He's gonna fence it in, but he's still gonna put an open grate there for drainage.
That's correct. Mr. Duran's concern was,
That there'd be a pocket there.
well, potential drainage, that is currently a high point. So in my opinion, it doesn't collect a lot of runoff. To Mr. Duran's point was that the snow storage area is slightly upgrading of that. So if you were to have a lot of snow storage one year, and that does drain out to the turf area, you'd like to collect that before it gets to the playground, which makes it.
And I guess my reason for my questioning is, because that is the playground area, why wouldn't you just bring the fence back? I understand you'd lose a portion of your, but to bring a fence back, even with, on the opposite side of the drainage grate, you know what I'm saying? So it goes
Not-
straight across and just have the grate outside of the fence, as opposed
Well,
to
what I was
inside the
thinking-
playground area.
Yeah, so take the fence and corner it around, because we'd like to maximize the turf area. Basically, it's better for drainage overall if we can have pervious versus impervious surface.
Sure.
So, basically just corner the fence around that, maximize the playground area, but also provide easy maintenance. That'd be the goal.
The fenced-in area will also provide storage for daycare. So it has a use for the other 99.99% of time. So it's an opportunity for daycare to store stuff not accessible to the kids. Anita, you can speak, she uses Rubbermaid containers for, the kids can't use the bikes because it's cold out, whatever it may be, so it's just to cordon off
I got you.
outside stuff that the kids.
That makes a little bit more sense how you guys are utilizing that. Okay.
And one thing we had discussed before was putting something over the structure that kids couldn't get into the grate or throw things down the grate. But to Mr. Duran's point, what if someone needs to access that? We'd rather have it fenced off, so access for maintenance is easier than.
Sure. Excellent. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I know
Counselor.
there was just some discussion previously about the primary egress being Cedar Street. Do you guys still have any issue with that?
No, that's anticipated. It's a lit intersection going out on Cedar. It's easy, it's convenient.
Would you be willing to put that in as one of the conditions? As being the primary?
Yeah, I mean, to the degree that, certainly Anita could speak to how they handle it with parents. But it certainly wouldn't be an issue for informing parents that it's not a problem.
And I think maybe, and I thank you, Counselor, for bringing that up. I think maybe if the condition read that your clients, the parents were notified, that in writing, I think we talked about that at the
Yeah.
public hearing, but we have it as a condition that they are notified in
Yeah.
writing to use that access.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier for them to use that access.
Like, second kids get in the car, and the answer is whatever the easiest path there is, I'm good.
And then also, I have one more thing. On condition 6, I would just like to add a couple words into it that says all students will be escorted into the building. So it should be into and out of the childcare center by an adult. And then on the second sentence, after dropping off, it'll say or picking up.
Is that in the form of a motion?
That is.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else, Councilor
Last
Taylor?
question I have is, will all the lights on the exterior be dark sky compliant?
Yes, we'll meet building code, certainly.
Would you think it's necessary to make that a condition? If you do, then just make a motion. Well, dark sky, I'm deferring to you.
All right, I'll make that in the form of a motion. So number 7 will be all exterior lighting will be dark sky compliant.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. And again, I know all the work that you did on the west side, so I appreciate your input on this, and I know we talked about it earlier. That we do have a building. It's a little bit far away, but still we want to be mindful of the residents in the area. Can I just ask one quick question about where you're going to store the extra playground equipment and all the fun stuff? Will that fencing have like a something that blocks what's inside there?
Solid white vinyl. 6
Perfect.
feet high.
Great.
We love the kids playing on the playground, and for everybody's safety, we like only people on site to see the kids playing on the playground.
So that we'll make that. What number are we on here? So we'll make
Number
that
8.
condition 8. That the I don't know, is the right word overflow or the additional playground equipment will be
Just say
fenced in and shielded, or
all daycare playground related fencing shall be solid panel.
sounds good. Did you get that, Gordon?
All daycare related
Playground fencing.
Will be
playground.
solid. That will be fenced in with solid
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 In the
panel
form of a motion.
Will be solid what?
with the solid fenced in with the solid panel. So you can't see inside. And that's in the form of a motion from Councilor Viola. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I just had one other quick question on the mitigation, JP. The applicant, and everybody, you probably read Jay's memo, and I really appreciate him taking the time to do that because he's not even the city engineer anymore. But he actually went out himself and took a look at things. The only thing I would like to add is after the applicant will install 4 buttons at the Salem Street, Washington Street intersection and provide 4 buttons to the city for the installation at Cedar Street, Washington Street intersection, and no occupancy permit will be, no occupancy permit is to be granted until that's done.
I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Do you have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Sorry. I think that covers it. Yes, JP, please.
So the last change,
Mhm.
is concerning, because we can't really dictate the speed at which that happens. So it puts us in a really tough spot. We're all for the mitigation, but in terms of our project, and this is for pedestrian access, we don't anticipate a single pedestrian entering the project for purposes of this project. And we have no issue with the mitigation, but to put it in the hands of Mass DOT and others to make sure that those last 4 pedestrian signals get in place prior to occupancy, it could be a function of us being at an absolute standstill and being completely out of our control.
Right, and I know you don't have any pedestrians because they're little,
Yeah,
but the littles are causing traffic for the pedestrians that are out there. So
Yeah.
I think that's how this sort of came about, but, and I have a concern, JP, that it has to be done before. Otherwise, we're fighting with Mass DOT. So why don't we send everything back, I'll make a recommendation, we send it back for action.
okay.
And then Joe and I can talk about it, because we do, and then obviously the rest of the council need to weigh in, but we've got to come up with something satisfactory that I know that this will happen.
Yeah, that was part of what Scott had recommended, was he said, we can pull those 4 out that we can control, and we will get those done come hell or high water. It's the other 4 that was the concern.
So the concern is it could take half a year or more, right, Scott?
Yeah, and I think the issue is that, like, the signal equipment itself is probably 8 weeks to get in hand. And then the location to the south, the Cedar, or the Sam Street location, that's under city jurisdiction. We can go out and have someone install that. The thing is, at the Cedar Street location, that's DOT jurisdiction.
Oh, I am very familiar with who owns what and why, and we've had challenges.
Well aware. So if it takes, there's been some change over there, if it's, it could easily take 4 months just to get a permit. And
Okay, well, see, now you're giving me some information that Attorney Tarby could probably work with us in terms of seeing progress in the permitting or some additional things without using occupancy, but there will be additional language.
And anything that I can do to light a fire, we will do.
I can talk to Joe about this tomorrow as well, because he is working, and just see if we can come up with some language about that to address, because we appreciate your concern here.
Yeah, I know, yeah, you were on the call.
You don't wanna
Yeah.
have equipment sitting in a warehouse, right?
Been there, done that.
Yeah, so anything that we can do on our end to get forward progress,
Right,
We're-
I appreciate that,
we're happy to
JP.
do.
And I appreciate the work that went into this, and, I'm happy again to report to the council, things seem to be moving over there now. I hope that holds true now that the school's back in. But is there any other comments?
Yeah.
President
So
Dillon?
your goal, as well as the petitioner, I'm sure, is to try to work this out before the September 17th.
Absolutely, unless there's any objections by my fellow councilors, but absolutely.
So you want, I'll make
I have a motion to send it back for action.
So moved.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you for being so patient. I know it's a long night.
That's okay, fire stations are very important.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, all right.